Welcome to the Week 5 Forum, and welcome to the first weekly discussion for Unit 2. This week we are, similar to Week 3, revisiting some of the constitutional principles related to the Constitution. This chapter really shows you the consequences of limited government. All right, this is like the rule book. What you're going to find as you read this material is that there are a lot of Supreme Court decisions that you need to take time to understand and to apply to constitutional principles. In no small ways, this is just about brute memorization. This is a sort of subject that was made for 3x5 index cards. You just write the constitutional amendments and or Supreme Court decisions on the blank side, and then you go to the other side and describe that amendment or decision, and then you drill yourself. Why it's important. You just go through them a dozen or so times, and I hate to say it, but oftentimes that's the most effective way to learn this sort of material. One of the most important parts of this chapter is the incorporation doctrine, which refers to the Supreme Court's interpretation of the 14th Amendment's due process clause to the Bill of Rights. It basically extends the Bill of Rights to the states. Previously, the Bill of Rights only constrained the actions of the federal government. So now the federal courts can hold that state police or state policies are behaving in a discriminatory manner. And incorporation also means that Congress is empowered to remedy instances where states are discriminating against minorities or other vulnerable groups. Incorporation makes civil rights claims feasible, and that'll be our subject for next week. As for our Bill of Rights guarantees, what are we to make, for example, of the Second Amendment? The current view of the Supreme Court is that the Second Amendment guarantees individuals the right to possess firearms. Has that always been the Supreme Court's interpretation? If you actually look at the wording of the Second Amendment, it reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Does that complex sentence mean that all individuals have an absolute right to carry any kind of gun or own any kind of gun? Currently, it's easier in some states to buy an AR-15 than it is to operate a car. Is that a sustainable state of affairs? I'm open to your Second Amendment related questions. My view is that the intent of the writers of the Second Amendment was for the states to have the capacity to form, train, arm, and maintain state militias, like our National Guard. And they were primarily worried about the threat of a central government, basically creating a standing army and infringing upon the rights of states to manage their internal affairs. I also do not believe that the framers saw the individual right to own a gun as unlimited. In my opinion, the mass marketing of assault weapons, which really began in the 2000s, has contributed to the increasing prevalence of those weapons' deployment in mass shootings. And I believe that a relatively unregulated gun market is unsustainable. There are too many deaths, both by mass shootings and by suicide. I'm sure some of you passionately disagree with me, and I welcome the debate. No one who takes an opposing, view to me need to have any worries. I'm just, that's my belief, but I don't grade it based on that. I had a student several years ago who, when we started discussion about this material, observed, "Why are so many amendments in the Bill of Rights dedicated to protecting criminals?" I think that's a great question. Does anyone in this class want to venture an answer? Why are the majority of the amendments that comprise the Bill of Rights dedicated to protecting the rights of individuals accused of a crime? It's a clue, possibly. It has something to do with the framers' commitment to limited government. I find the Fourth and Eighth Amendments to be particularly interesting in terms of demonstrating the framers' commitment to limited government. The Fourth Amendment constrains the ability of police to simply kick down your door and search your house. Police have to respect due process, and in order to obtain a search warrant, they have to present a judge with evidence that gives them a reasonable suspicion you might be planning a crime or that you've committed crimes and have evidence of that activity in your home. The Supreme Court has constrained the ability of police and intelligence agencies from wiretapping or using surveillance equipment to eavesdrop on citizens, again, in private homes. You need a warrant. The USA Patriot Act has eroded some of those Fourth Amendment protections, and law enforcement agencies believe they need further authorities to, better combat terrorism. What do you think? The Eighth Amendment prevents cruel and unusual punishment. What do you think the framers meant by that term? I suspect they wanted to forestall the imposition of torture as a form of punishment. However, the problem with the phrase cruel and unusual is that it relies on a standard of what communities of Americans think constitutes cruel and unusual punishment. For many Americans, the infliction of death is perfectly acceptable. For others, there's no way to kill someone without inflicting cruel and unusual punishment. My problem is the irrevocability of the death penalty. I don't think any government is perfect, and even with due process in place, it's likely the state will kill innocent people in the process of attempting to punish them for certain kind of crimes. My belief in limited government causes me to think that the state should not, that we should not give the state the power to kill people as a form of punishment, while acknowledging that otherwise we grant the state considerable power to kill in other circumstances. But again, what do you think? Another important issue related to civil liberties is the idea of privacy. Do we have a right to be left alone? How far can we push that right? Do we have a right to consume drugs that other people might view as dangerous? Do we have a right to engage in sexual relations that others might view as profoundly immoral? Do we have a right, if we're in the terminal stages of a disease, to end our lives? These are all innately related to our right to privacy. As a country, our views regarding the right to privacy are increasingly fluid. And it's hard for me to see, where the line is on a lot of these kinds of issues. Again, what do you think? I welcome your privacy issues. Okay, hopefully I provided you with enough fodder for an interesting discussion. Let's have a fun week. And always remember, dissent is the hallmark of a healthy democracy.